What's up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. At least 2 people have been injured in a knife attack on a Taichung metro train. The incident comes exactly 10 years to the date after a stabbing attack on the Taipei metro that killed 4 people. Reese Ayers has the latest.
A nightmare scenario unfolds on a train in central Taiwan on Tuesday morning. An attacker with a knife injures at least 2 commuters on the Taichung metro before being overpowered and subdued by members of the public. The suspect, now in custody, is being questioned by police, looking for a motive.
目前警方还在了解当中，他这个作案等等相关的情形。不过就是从高雄昨天才上来的，那所以今天他是刻意挑选这个。
Unprovoked violent attacks like this are rare in Taiwan, but the timing and manner of this one is not likely to be mere coincidence. The incident comes exactly 10 years to the day after a fatal knife attack on a Taipei metro train in which 4 people were killed. The 21-year-old killer was executed 2 years later, but his attack left a deep scar on the nation. After the 2014 attack, police officers began patrolling every station on the Taipei metro system. The attack also ignited public conversations about mental health, public safety, and capital punishment. A decade later, as police seek to understand why another young man carried out a similarly heinous attack, fresh conversations about how to prevent such incidents are likely to begin. Justin Wu and Reese Ayers for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's legislature is locked in a partisan standoff over 5 controversial proposals. John Van Trieste looks at what's behind the division.
A tense calm has returned to the legislature days after this brawl that injured several lawmakers. But there's little sign the issue that sparked this violence is getting resolved. The opposition, led by the Kuomintang, has proposed 5 laws that would expand the legislature's powers. One's already passed its second of 3 readings. It would require the president to take questions from lawmakers after a regular State of the Nation address. From here, things get more controversial, though. The Kuomintang also wants to give the legislature the power of investigation and to summon people to testify. It also wants to subject cabinet officials to fines or jail time if they lie or withhold information during questioning. It wants lawmakers to have more power over approving government appointees. And it wants an open record of votes for legislative speaker. These changes are meant to give the legislature more power to oversee the executive branch. But even within the chamber itself, there's deep division along party lines. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party has just won its 3rd consecutive term in the presidential office. It doesn't want to dilute its own power, especially as it only holds a legislative minority. Office chair barricades and protest signs scattered across the chamber floor show that the calm may just be a lull in a long battle. Klein Wong and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
To learn more about the controversial reforms and how they compare internationally, Ed Moon spoke to political risk analyst Ross Feingold.
Could you tell us a little bit about why these proposed legislative reforms are proving to be so controversial with the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and with its supporters and a lot of civic groups?
Well, what the Democratic Progressive Party is concerned about is the contempt of the legislative UN, creating a new crime. It's targeting government officials from the DPP government. So their concern, which is a legitimate concern, is that DPP government, or government officials appointed by the DPP government will be called into the legislative UN to testify, and the legislators won't like their answers, and they're going to proceed with seeking charges for contempt of the legislative UN. Now, on the other hand, though, if we look at this from the other perspective, expecting government officials to be forthright when they're questioned by a parliament, that's fairly standard stuff in democracies around the world.
So one of the complaints that we've heard is that this has been a sort of black box process, very unopen. There's been accusations that the DPP weren't allowed to provide their point of view, and these laws have been directly voted on. Do you, in your experience, have you seen situations like this before in Taiwan?
When there's a majority, they'll try to speed up the legislative processes. So keeping in mind that the Chinese Nationalist Party, or Kuomintang, combined with the Taiwan People's Party, have a majority in the Legislative Yuan, they could do whatever they want. I mean, that's just the nature of democratic politics. The DPP, they enjoyed a majority for 8 years. They weren't always concerned with the feelings of the minority, and that's just the way it is, right? The voters have spoken. For 2 previous elections, the voters were very clear. They gave the Democratic Progressive Party a very healthy majority, and they were able to pass whatever legislation they wanted to. Now, as we say in English, the shoe's on the other foot. And the Democratic Progressive Party now has a minority in the Legislative Yuan, and their powers are limited. It's the same thing in other democracies as well. In the United States House of Representatives, the Republicans have a small majority. The Democrats can't stop the Republicans in the House from passing legislation or holding hearings and other work of the House. In the U.S. Senate, the Democrats have a small majority, and again, the Republicans, they can't stop the Senate majority Democrats from doing what the Senate majority Democrats want to do. This is just the nature of democratic politics.
From what you've seen, is there anything about these laws that is concerning in terms of the way that they've been worded?
Another aspect of this package is to expand the investigatory powers of the Legislative Yuan. And again, though, that's not unusual in democracies, that members of parliament, or in the case of the United States Congress, that they have the ability to conduct hearings into various issues, various public policy issues. Often they say they need to do it as part of writing potential legislation on that issue. Sometimes they're just trying to get to the bottom of wrongdoing. That could be in the government, or it could be in the private sector. The United States Congress, for example, they have subpoena power. They could demand that people produce documents and demand that people testify. And if they refuse to cooperate with a valid subpoena from the United States Congress, the Congress could refer them to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution. So again, the powers that the Legislative Yuan majority is seeking to give itself, they are not by themselves unusual. There's always the possibility of abuse, and certainly there's the possibility of abuse when the powers are newly given to the legislators, right? It's going to take them a while to learn how to use the powers, if it does pass into law, and how to use those powers appropriately. So it's a legitimate concern to ask, are the legislators ready? Are they mature enough?
That was Ed Moon speaking to political risk analyst Ross Feingold. President Lai Ching-te replaced 4 of Taiwan's top law enforcement and security officials on his first day in office. Lai named Taipei Police Commissioner Zhang Rongxing Director General of the National Police Agency. Former prosecutor Chen Baili will head up the Investigation Bureau. Feng Chen takes over at the Agency Against Corruption, and Zhang Zonglong will lead the Coast Guard administration. The reshuffle comes as Lai seeks to address issues of traffic, police discipline, and public safety. Newly inaugurated President Lai Ching-te says he wants Taiwan to become a country known for its space and drone industries. Industry analysts say that might not be so easy. Chris Gorin has the story.
With President Lai Ching-te now in office, one of his goals is to see Taiwan advance in the space industry and in unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as UAVs or drones.
要让台湾成为无人机民主供应链的亚洲中心，也要发展下一个世代通讯的中低轨道卫星。
Some industry analysts believe Taiwan's lead in chip and hardware manufacturing makes it well placed to accomplish this goal, despite lower levels of investment compared to other countries.
比较没有制定产业规格的能力，不过我们具有强大的制造跟客户共同开发的能力。台湾所要扮演的角色就是关键零组件的提供，或者是整机的制造。即使我们投入的金额没有那么大，但是我相信，而且我具有信心，我们还是可以发展得还不错的。
One complicating factor is China. Drones and satellites are considered strategic technologies, critical to national security. But their supply chain still relies in part on China, Taiwan's main security threat. And moving this supply chain away from Taiwan's big neighbor will take significant investment.
我们会需要有更多的资金投入，我们会有排除一定程度排除红色供应链的需求，所以从这角度来说，我们在发展无人机的时候，还是会有我们自己市场需要满足的这个份额。无人机国家队就是无人机产业聚落，其实算是一个很初步的实现。
Taiwan may have a long way to go before it can match the development funds established by its neighbors Japan and South Korea. But as the global leader in semiconductors and with a formidable manufacturing base, it's hoping it can get a running start. Alex Chun and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
The International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for top leaders of Israel and Hamas, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The ICC also wants warrants for Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and 3 Hamas leaders. The court says actions taken in the Gaza Strip and Israel amount to war crimes. The announcement has been criticized by Netanyahu and other world leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden. Hamas also condemned the move, saying it, quote, equates the victim with the executioner. Over 1,200 people in Israel and over 35,000 people in Gaza have been killed since October. A group of Russian lawmakers has arrived in North Korea for a 5-day visit. The head of Russia's Parliamentary Committee on North Korean Relations is leading the delegation. Pyongyang's Foreign Affairs Minister Ri Shol greeted Grigory Rapota and his group at the airport. The Russian embassy in North Korea says the two sides are meeting to discuss how their legislatures can work together. Ties between the two countries have deepened since North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited Russia last year. The visit comes after the U.S. and South Korea accused Pyongyang of selling weapons to Moscow for its war in Ukraine. Pyongyang has denied the claims. The Philippines is blaming Chinese fishers for environmental damage in the South China Sea.
Those were the last remaining giant clams na nakita na tayo sa Baho de Masinloc. Wala na tayong iba pang makita rito.
The Philippine Coast Guard released footage of Chinese fishers harvesting large amounts of clams in the Scarborough Shoal, an area claimed by both the Philippines and China. The Coast Guard says the activity has significantly damaged coral in the shoal. Philippine officials are calling for an investigation into the extent of the environmental damage. China's foreign ministry denies the accusations, blaming the Philippines' activity in the area for the damage. Houses in Taiwan now are more expensive than in both Singapore and Tokyo. Harrell Hughes reports on what this means for the real estate market.
Homes in Taipei. Advertised by convenient locations, low down payments, and good square footage, the demand for property is high. But it's out of reach for most young people in Taiwan. Housing prices are soaring, and new data shows owning a home is only getting harder.
是家里没有支持的话，当然比较不容易。但是就是先做一些投资，然后未来有机会的话会买房子。
你首先你要有加入一个有前景的一个行业别了，才有办法，不然的话这个买房子确实越来越困难。
In 2023, the average loan for a mortgage was over $300,000 US, a record high. For many people in Taiwan, the only way to buy a home is with a long-term loan, which means longer repayments and more pressure. It's a situation real estate experts attribute to Taiwan's strong economy and demand for property.
有些人他其实赚的钱，他会想说把钱放在一个比较保值的一个地方，其实很容易就是会回流到不动产市场。那以现在的一个预售，每个月揭露都是接近1万户的这种市况来讲的话，其实建商卖得又快又好的条件之下，短期之内并没有什么一个降价的一个趋势会出现。
Taiwan's real estate market is now one of the most expensive in Asia, second only to Hong Kong, leaving many wondering if they will ever afford a home of their own. Patrick Chen and Harrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's export orders for April had their biggest jump in nearly 2 years. The economy ministry says the country's export orders that month hit $47 billion US. That's an increase of 10.8% year on year. The ministry says demand for artificial intelligence and high-speed computing was behind the growth. The ministry expects demand for AI to fuel further growth throughout the rest of the second quarter. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Before we go, check out this exhibition in Bogota featuring hundreds of endangered meat-eating plants. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.